It all starts when the most popular girl of school named Karen suddenly approaches Amano at a game store and starts talking to him. His brain immediately crashes because he never imagined the most popular girl in school would willingly speak to a useless nobody like him. He starts fumbling every sentence like you talking to a pretty girl for the first time, and within seconds, he's already embarrassed himself enough to want the ground to swallow him. Trying to recover from his negative aura, Amano explains that he wasn't trying to be creepy, but Karen assures him that she understands. She even compliments him, saying she thinks he's perfect. Before dropping the ultimate bombshell, she asks him to join her newly formed game club. Meanwhile, somewhere else, this Barbie wannabe girl named Aguri is begging her boyfriend Tasuku to win her a plushie from a claw machine. The dude casually gets it on his first try, making Aguri extremely happy. Tasuku starts feeling himself, thinking he's living the dream with a beautiful girlfriend who, unfortunately, isn't exactly winning any awards for intelligence. While walking home that evening, Tasuku suddenly spots Amano looking like a starving puppy. He recognizes him as his classmate and the school's infamous game Otaku, so he wonders what he's doing outside at this hour. But after seeing Amano, Tasuku immediately concludes that a hopeless guy like him could never pull a girl as attractive as his own girlfriend. Meanwhile, Amano was still talking with Karen, who explains more about the game club she created. She tells him that she's always wondered why everyone treats her so politely, from her classmates to even the teachers. Apparently, there was even one time when she stayed awake for 3 straight days trying to break a speedrun world record, and somehow people still treated her like royalty. Amano thinks she's completely making this up and suggests that she must have been glitching or something, but Karen insists she's telling the truth. Amano is actually surprised that someone like her is into gaming, and Karen admits that she hasn't told anyone about this side of herself. She reveals that she actually transferred to their school because it was famous for its game club. Unfortunately, by the time she arrived, the club had already been shut down, so she decided to revive it herself and has been searching for people who genuinely love gaming. And apparently, she found one in Amano. Karen once again asks if he'd like to join the club, but before Amano can answer, she receives a call from her mother and has to leave. She tells him they'll meet again at school tomorrow. Later that night, Amano can't stop thinking about Karen's offer. For once, something interesting is actually happening in his life, and he's genuinely excited about it. While playing games, he suddenly receives a notification asking him to either accept or decline an assistance request from an unknown player named Mano. Naturally, he doesn't think much of it. The next morning at school, Amano was nervous about seeing Karen again, so he tries to distract himself with his phone. But there it is again, the same request from Mano. He clicks an option, only for Karen to suddenly appear and greet him like they're already best friends. Amano immediately notices several classmates staring at them and gets embarrassed, so he quickly tells Karen that they should just head to the game club. As they leave, Tasuku watches them in disbelief. He can't believe Karen, one of the most popular girls in school, is actually friends with the most useless guy in their class. On the way to the club room, Karen introduces Amano to another new member named Misumi. Soon, they arrive at the game club, and Amano is surprised that the school even approved a gaming club. Karen explains that the club actually does much more than people realize. Once inside, she introduces Amano and Misumi to the other members, Kaze and Nina. Amano is surprised to see Kaze playing Call of Duty, while Misumi has absolutely no idea what the game is because apparently, the smooth-brained man has only played Candy Crush in his entire life. Karen then reveals that most of the expensive gaming equipment in the room was purchased using prize money they earned from gaming competitions. Naturally, the two boys are impressed. She tells them to grab a device and start playing so they can see what they've got. And that's exactly what they do. For the next 2 hours, everyone plays non-stop until Amano feels like his soul is about to leave his body. Meanwhile, Kaze is shocked by Misumi's gameplay. He can't believe this is supposedly the first time Misumi has ever played a game like this. Misumi confirms that it really is his first time, causing Kaze to praise him and declare that the guy might actually have what it takes to become a top player. Then Kaze turns toward Amano and asks what the hell he thinks he's doing. Yeah, Amano isn't exactly receiving the same praise. Eventually, they decide to take a break, although Kaze and Nina continue gaming without slowing down. During the break, Karen asks everyone how they got into gaming. She explains that Kaze, for example, was trained brutally by his mercenary father when he was young, which eventually made him extremely skilled at Call of Duty. She also explains Nina's background before turning to Amano. When asked why he got into gaming, Amano admits that he doesn't really have a specific reason. Misumi agrees with him, making Amano happy that he's finally found someone who's just as normal as him. Unfortunately, Misumi immediately ruins that moment by making up some random reason for himself. Amano feels betrayed all over again. Finally, Karen asks if they've learned enough about the club. She explains that they don't actually need to be good at games to join. The entire purpose of the club is to help its members improve. She then asks the two boys one final time if they want to join. Before Amano can answer, Kei steps forward and offers to personally teach him the basics of the game. Amano is actually excited about finally meeting people who love games as much as he does, so for a moment, it feels like his school life is finally going according to plan. But then, for some reason even he can't explain, he turns down the club, claiming they don't play the kind of games he enjoys. Almost immediately, he regrets it and starts wondering why he rejected such a perfect opportunity. Just then, another request from Amano pops up on his phone. As Amano is about to accept it, Karen suddenly approaches him again and begs him to reconsider joining the club, leaving the entire class shocked. She even reaches out her hand, but Amano chooses to accept Mano's request instead. He explains that he doesn't think he's good enough for the club and prefers gaming simply for fun rather than treating it like a competition. Unfortunately, Karen takes the rejection pretty badly. It's apparently the first time anyone has ever turned her down, and she starts crying before storming away. Things somehow get even worse when she slips on a banana peel in front of everyone, turning an already painful moment into a full-blown public disaster. The classmates have no idea what happened, but Amano quickly becomes the villain of the story simply because nobody understands the weird situation between them. During the next class, Tsuku keeps watching Amano, still trying to figure out what makes this guy so strange. At lunch, Aguri tells Tsuku that everyone is gossiping about the Amano-Karen incident. His friends are surprised he didn't already know, and they even ask whether Amano and Karen are dating. That question reminds Tsuku of how Aguri originally confessed to him with a love letter. He only accepted because he was lonely at the time and didn't have a reason to say no. Meanwhile, Aguri has no idea she's basically just filling a temporary vacancy in his love life and is simply happy to be with him. After school, the couple heads to an arcade, but Tsuku eventually leaves Aguri to play by himself. While gaming, he suddenly remembers the days when he was constantly bullied as a kid and wonders when these painful memories will finally stop haunting him. That's when he notices Amano watching him. Amano awkwardly asks if Tsuku likes gaming, but Tsuku admits he's never really thought about it. Amano then starts passionately explaining a game he recently discovered. Tsuku isn't interested in his recommendation, so Amano apologizes and walks away. A few moments later, Tsuku notices Amano wandering around the arcade like a lost tourist. He can't believe someone who loves games this much barely knows how an arcade works. So he calls Amano over and asks if he wants to play together. Amano immediately agrees, although he somehow manages to misunderstand the invitation before Tsuku tells him to shut up and just pick a game. They start playing, and Amano explains that he usually only watches game demos because he doesn't have anyone to play with. Tsuku is stunned that this is the same idiot who rejected the hottest girl in school. He asks what happened between Amano and Karen, and after hearing the whole story, Tsuku can't understand why Amano prefers his usual games over the ones at the club. Amano struggles to explain it, but the difference is simple. He just enjoys gaming differently. Despite being a complete beginner, Tsuku absolutely destroys Amano in their first fighting game. Yet instead of getting upset, Amano is genuinely thrilled just to have someone playing with him. Tsuku beats him again and starts feeling guilty for bullying an amateur, so they move on to other games. During a break, Tsuku notices how happy Amano looks and asks if he's simply enjoying all the games he normally can't play because he has nobody to play with. Embarrassed, Amano immediately runs back toward the arcade for another game. Tsuku follows him and suddenly spots Karen nearby, wondering what she's doing there. Meanwhile, Amano notices Tsuku's friends and immediately bolts out of the arcade, leaving Tsuku completely confused. He quickly chases after him and catches up outside. When Tsuku asks why he ran away, Amano denies doing anything. Then he asks why Tsuku would even bother hanging out with him when he already has his own life. That comment finally pushes Tsuku over the edge. He grabs Amano by the collar and angrily tells him never to talk about himself like that again. Tsuku admits that he used to be a geek too, but unlike Amano, he actually made an effort to change himself. He tells Amano that his whole idea of playing games just for fun is ridiculous and that he should probably quit gaming altogether. But when Tsuku insults Karen's game club, Amano finally snaps and threatens to throw him off the bridge. Amano explains that Tsuku can insult him all he wants, but he has no right to trash someone he barely knows. He defends Karen, saying she's genuinely kind enough to invite even a useless guy like him into her club, so Tsuku better take back what he said. Seeing Amano's murderous expression, Tsuku immediately starts begging for his life. Amano then realizes that continuing this might land him in prison alongside some infamous names, so he lets go and apologizes. Tsuku later remembers the day he packed away his own game collection and realizes he was wrong to compare himself with Amano. He apologizes, admitting he never expected the same guy who rejected Karen's invitation to defend her club so passionately. The two settle their argument and go their separate ways. Before leaving, Tasuku notices Karen secretly staring at Amano like she's watching her favorite celebrity. He points it out, instantly making her embarrassed. Tasuku walks away planning to encourage the two of them, mostly because watching Amano suffer sounds entertaining. He then reunites with Aguri, who asks him to win another plushie. Tasuku initially refuses because he already spent plenty of money gaming with Amano, but after Aguri starts giving him attitude, he gives in. While playing, Tasuku starts thinking about their 6-month relationship and wonders why he even agreed to date her. So he finally asks what made her fall for him, expecting some compliment about his looks. Instead, Aguri reveals that she liked him since their old school days, specifically from the time he won her a plushie at the arcade. Tasuku is stunned because back then he was broke, miserable, and only went to the arcade to escape his problems. He runs off in embarrassment, but for some reason, Aguri suddenly looks much cuter to him than before. The next day, Tasuku walks into class looking like he just defeated the Ender Dragon and happily tells Amano that he enjoyed gaming with him. He even asks Amano to recommend another good game sometime. His friends are shocked by how close they've suddenly become, but Tasuku proudly announces that he's officially entered his gaming era. A few days later, Tasuku confronts Amano about one of his recommendations, complaining that the game was boring as hell. Amano is still happy because Tasuku actually gave it a chance. Tasuku explains that the game started brilliantly but ended so badly that he regretted playing it. Amano agrees, saying the developers make terrible games sometimes, yet somehow they still have a weird charm. When Tasuku doesn't understand, Amano compares it to falling in love. It doesn't always make logical sense. Tasuku immediately reminds him that he's a useless virgin giving relationship advice to someone with actual experience, before changing the subject and asking about Karen. Amano is confused, so Tasuku points out that Karen has basically been stalking him ever since he rejected her. Amano says he only notices her occasionally in the corner of his eye, which leaves Tasuku wondering how this guy can miss something so obvious. He warns Amano that if they keep avoiding each other, they might eventually lose their connection completely. Just then, Amano gets another game notification and asks Tasuku if he can play for a moment. While watching, Tasuku notices Amano's username, Suchi, and asks why he chose something so lame. Amano explains that he doesn't like using his real name online, so he shortened his mother's maiden name instead. Tasuku immediately regrets asking. He then asks about Amano's online partner, Mano. Amano happily explains that they've been playing together since he started the game and that it's surprisingly exciting to feel close to someone he's never even met. Tasuku can only stare at him, realizing this guy still has a long way to go. He decides Amano needs some serious social rehabilitation before he can even understand the romantic situation developing with Karen. Tasuku offers to help him escape his permanent loner status and suggests starting with a girl who actually shares his gaming interests. After school, he takes Amano to another classroom and points out an otaku girl named Chiaki, telling him to go talk to her. Amano immediately refuses, but before Tasuku can force him inside, Aguri appears and calls him over, asking why he isn't spending time with her. Tasuku has to leave, but he orders Amano to talk to Chiaki before disappearing. As Amano waits outside the classroom, another student jokes that he must have come to see Karen. Amano casually denies it and says he's actually there to meet another girl. That statement absolutely destroys Karen emotionally. Amano finally approaches Chiaki's desk, but before he can say anything, Karen appears and asks why he's in her classroom. He tells her he came to meet a girl. When Karen assumes it's something related to club management, Amano casually clarifies that he's actually there to make friends with the girl sitting beside her. Karen nearly takes critical damage from that sentence. After briefly dealing with her, Amano turns toward Chiaki, who immediately shrinks into her seat and wonders why this random guy is talking to her. But Amano suddenly mentions the game she's playing, instantly catching her attention. Later, Amano and Chiaki meet outside and immediately fall into an awkwardly boring conversation. Chiaki eventually realizes he might be from the game club and quickly apologizes, saying she isn't interested. Amano clears things up by admitting he was invited to but never joined. They soon discover they have almost identical reasons for avoiding the club, and this instantly gives them something in common. Before their friendship can even properly develop, however, they start arguing over their different gaming preferences. Tasuku steps in and settles the argument, only for another one to break out moments later. Amano explains that they're both lonely gamers with massive egos, so apparently compromising over games is simply impossible. That's when Amano notices Aguri standing at the entrance with an absolutely terrifying aura. Tasuku, completely forgetting he was supposed to meet his girlfriend, casually compliments Chiaki's hair and even suggests she'd look better with it shorter. Amano can only watch in fear as Aguri looks ready to explode, while Karen and Misumi secretly spy on the whole situation from nearby. On the way home, Aguri is unusually quiet and eventually asks Tasuku what he was doing in that classroom. He explains that he was just settling an argument between two gamers. She then asks about Amano, who Tasuku has suddenly been spending a lot of time with. Tasuku says they're simply talking about games, but somehow that answer doesn't make Aguri feel any better. The next day, everyone is talking about a mysterious new girl who's apparently gorgeous. Tasuku is confused until Chiaki approaches them. He almost doesn't recognize her because the girl who previously had seaweed-like hair has completely transformed after following his advice. Tasuku happily compliments her new look, while Amano suddenly notices Aguri running away sadly and immediately chases after her. While searching, Amano runs into Karen, who awkwardly starts apologizing about everything. He ignores her apology and instead asks if she's seen a girl with a nice figure. Karen points him in the right direction, but when she asks why he's chasing Aguri, Amano casually explains that it's relationship drama, instantly crushing whatever hope she had left. Amano eventually finds Aguri and invites her for tea. At the cafe, he tries to convince her that there's nothing romantic going on between Tasuku and Chiaki, which immediately cheers her up. But just when everything seems fine, Aguri returns with another drink and suddenly witnesses something that completely changes the situation. Meanwhile, Karen's normally perfect routine has started falling apart ever since she developed feelings for Amano. She usually wakes up at 5:30, goes jogging, studies, eats breakfast, and heads to school without wasting time worrying about her appearance. At school, she socializes, helps teachers, and politely rejects the endless stream of guys confessing to her before spending the afternoon improving her gaming skills at the club. After returning home, she studies, plays some games, and goes to bed early. But ever since Amano entered her thoughts, that perfect routine has been destroyed. She wakes up from dreams about him, rolls around in embarrassment, sleeps in until 7, rushes through her homework and breakfast, and suddenly becomes obsessed with how she looks before heading to school. Instead of enjoying time with her friends, Karen now spends her breaks looking for Amano and even takes longer routes when helping teachers just to increase her chances of seeing him. Whenever someone asks if she's interested in anyone, her face turns bright red because obviously, she has one specific idiot occupying her mind. At the game club, her performance also starts dropping. Nina notices that Karen has been distracted lately, and Kaze points out that she's losing the sharpness she used to have. As the club president, Karen knows she can't keep slacking off, so she decides to get serious again. Unfortunately, that plan lasts about 5 minutes because when she goes to bed, she starts thinking about Amano all over again. She spends hours wondering if he'll finally join the club, staying awake until nearly 2 a.m. The next day, while playing with Misumi, Karen gets asked whether she's heard anything about the relationship between Chiaki and Amano. The moment she hears their names together, her concentration completely disappears, and she gets destroyed in the game before she can even process what she just heard. Karen starts worrying about her recent performance and realizes she's been playing differently ever since Amano told her that gaming should be about having fun. Just thinking about him makes her embarrassed, so she speeds up her walk, only to run straight into the guy she was trying to avoid. After awkwardly composing herself, Karen asks what he's doing outside. Amano admits he spent the entire day gaming until his mom got angry and basically ordered him to touch some grass. Karen suggests they take a walk together, but Amano refuses, saying someone as beautiful as her shouldn't be seen with an ape like him. Karen refuses to accept another rejection and steps closer, asking if he actually hates her. Amano immediately says no, making her face turn red. He then explains that he doesn't want to create more rumors, but Karen pulls him back and insists it's just a walk, not a date. With that, she starts walking and expects him to follow. They eventually head toward an arcade, and Amano is surprised to learn that Karen visits it whenever the game club isn't meeting. When she asks about his own arcade experience, Amano admits he never thought he liked the place until he recently visited with someone else. Karen immediately assumes he's talking about Chiaki, then convinces herself it must have been Tasuku. Inside, Amano stops at a crane game and asks if Karen likes playing them. Her imagination instantly goes wild, picturing Amano and Chiaki playing together and getting all romantic. She becomes so embarrassed that she nearly attacks the machine with her forehead. Amano then suggests playing some coin games and casually throws in 500 yen. He wins a decent pile of coins, forcing Karen to join so she doesn't look like a sore loser. They turn it into a 30-minute challenge, and when time is up, Karen returns carrying a mountain of coins while Amano comes back looking like he just lost his life savings. Even after winning, Karen doesn't feel satisfied. Then one of her coins drops, and Amano asks to use it for one final game, offering to bet their entire challenge on it. Karen is surprised because she thought Amano only cared about having fun, but he explains that if it's a challenge, he obviously wants to win because that's what makes it exciting. Unfortunately, Amano loses and looks genuinely disappointed. Karen can't understand how that makes sense when he rejected her club because he didn't want to focus on winning. Amano explains that winning and losing are both part of the fun. If he didn't care about the result at all, there wouldn't be much excitement in playing. This makes Karen ask why he still refuses to join the game club. Amano Amano admits that he simply doesn't have the determination required to seriously compete. But when she asks whether she and the others are ridiculous for getting so worked up over victories and defeats, Amano excitedly tells her that enjoying your victories while being frustrated by your losses is one of the best parts of gaming. Karen instantly lights up, realizing Amano doesn't actually dislike the game club. She happily decides to head home so she can play games immediately. Meanwhile, back at the cafe situation, Tasuku and Chiaki are walking together while wondering where Amano disappeared to. Chiaki suddenly tells Tasuku that she wants to discuss game development because she's working on a game of her own. Tasuku suggests she ask Amano for advice, but Chiaki immediately dismisses him as an idiot. Just then, Chiaki receives a game notification and quickly logs in. Tasuku notices her username is Mano and suddenly remembers Amano talking about the same player. Curious, he checks her partner's name and discovers that Mano has been playing with Sachi, the exact username Amano uses. Tasuku's brain immediately starts connecting the dots. He asks Chiaki how long she's known Sachi, and she explains that they've been gaming together since she started playing. She even admits that communicating with someone she's never met is strangely exciting. That's almost word for word what Amano told Tasuku about Mano, convincing him that the universe is basically screaming at these two idiots to get together. Tasuku then asks what she thinks about Amano, but Chiaki says she hates him more than anything. When he presses further, she claims she'd rather jump off a skyscraper than be stuck alone with Amano. Tasuku asks about her username too, and her explanation matches Amano's story perfectly. At this point, Tasuku is convinced the anime gods have already written their romance and just need him to push the plot forward. The next day, he gathers Amano and Chiaki after school and proposes creating a new gamers meetup group where they can simply hang out, discuss games, and have fun. Both of them love the idea, except for one tiny problem: they absolutely don't want to be around each other. Tasuku quickly adds that the group won't just be about casually discussing games. Members can also argue and debate about them. That immediately gets their attention. Amano then points out that 3 people aren't enough for a proper group, and Tasuku reveals there's already one more member. Karen walks in and freezes when she sees Amano and Chiaki together. She's shocked that both of them rejected her game club but willingly joined this meetup. When she asks if they chose it because of each other, both idiots innocently say yes. Karen takes critical emotional damage and tries to leave, but Tasuku quickly pulls out a chair and makes her stay. He then shifts the conversation toward Chiaki's game development project. Chiaki admits she's worried her game might not become as successful as she hopes. Amano unexpectedly gives her some genuinely useful advice, instantly easing her worries. For a moment, they actually seem to connect, until they start arguing again. Amano claims he doesn't care about the mediocre game she makes, while Karen notices there's clearly some strange chemistry between them. Tasuku then quietly tells Karen that she's actually the reason Amano started talking to Chiaki in the first place. According to him, Amano was looking for someone to talk to, and since Karen was unavailable, he simply tried another gamer first. Karen's expression changes instantly, and Tasuku smiles because his little plan is finally working. Amano and Chiaki notice the sudden change and start wondering if there's actually something going on between them. Unfortunately, none of them notice Aguri standing outside and watching everything. She calls Amano over, and he immediately gets up to leave. Once he's gone, Chiaki casually mentions that she never knew Amano had such a cute girlfriend, since she'd seen the two together before. Tasuku and Karen are both stunned, while Aguri's words hit them like a truck. Amano takes Aguri to a cafe, where she starts crying and blames him for convincing her that Tasuku actually liked her. The situation gets so loud that even the waiter has to step in and tell them to calm down. Once Aguri settles, Amano admits he never realized Tasuku was such a player and asks if she still loves him. When Aguri says yes, Amano wonders why she doesn't simply find someone more compatible. She explains that love isn't something you consciously choose, you just end up falling for someone. Amano is surprised by the answer, so he takes her hand and promises to help them get back together. Just then, they notice Chiaki watching them suspiciously. Amano immediately rushes over and somehow manages to calm her down. He later proudly tells Aguri that he handled everything by explaining how she's the most thoughtful and adorable girlfriend in the world. Aguri is thrilled and decides she'll do everything she can to help Amano get together with Karen. Meanwhile, Tasuku is stuck at the arcade, unable to stop wondering whether Amano and Aguri might actually be together despite everything he's been told. The next day, Amano asks Tasuku for help with a dating sim game. Tasuku tells him he should spend less time worrying about fictional girls and actually learn how to talk to real ones. Amano argues that he doesn't have the looks required to approach Karen, but Tasuku reminds him that they've already spent time together at the arcade. Amano still doesn't consider that enough and starts wondering if Tasuku is only pushing him toward Karen because he wants a chance with her himself. Tasuku assures him that he genuinely wants the two of them to get along. Amano gets so touched that he grabs Tasuku's hand, completely overwhelmed by his friend's support. Unfortunately, Chiaki walks in at that exact moment and sees the two holding hands. Her expression says everything, and Tasuku immediately runs after her. Later, they meet at a cafe, where Chiaki once again wonders how Amano could possibly have such a cute girlfriend. Tasuku pretends he's just as surprised. Chiaki reveals that Amano had actually been bragging about his girlfriend. Tasuku's expression instantly changes. When Chiaki notices something is wrong, he quickly changes the subject. He asks what she thinks about Karen, and Chiaki admits that compared to Karen, she feels completely inferior. She even says she'd love to become friends with her someday. Tasuku tells her she should just go out with Sachi already, confusing her. Chiaki then asks what he thinks about Karen, and Tasuku describes her as practically flawless. Chiaki immediately assumes that means he likes Karen, but Tasuku surprises her by saying he'd still choose Chiaki because she looks perfect to him. Chiaki's face turns red, and she immediately runs away. Tasuku follows her, leaving Amano and Aguri nearby completely shocked. To them, this looks like absolute proof that Tasuku is cheating. Aguri sits there emotionally destroyed but still insists she loves him. Amano asks what she's going to do now, but Aguri turns the question back on him and asks about his progress with Karen. Amano admits he still sees himself as someone who's not worthy of even being Karen's friend. Aguri tells him the only solution is to speak to her directly. Amano then asks how she confessed to Tasuku, making Aguri blush as she explains that she simply walked up to him and asked him out. Her advice is simple. If Amano genuinely wants to be friends with Karen, he needs to stop overthinking it and just tell her. Amano takes the advice seriously and decides he'll finally talk to Karen the next day, no matter what happened. Meanwhile, Karen rejects another confession at school. Misumi later talks to her about it, and she explains that she's harsh because she doesn't want to give those guys false hope. Misumi then points out that she's recently become too dismissive of everything and suggests she show a little more emotion instead of constantly acting cold. Karen decides to take his advice. That night, Amano keeps failing at his dating sim and starts wondering if it's proof that he's simply incompatible with Karen. Just then, messages from Aguri and Tasuku arrive, encouraging him for the next day. Their support gives him another boost, so he changes his strategy and finally wins the game. Amano celebrates like he just conquered the world and thanks his friends for giving him the confidence to try again. With his courage finally restored, he's ready to talk to Karen. The next morning, however, Amano discovers that Tasuku has already told basically everyone about his plan. He immediately gets annoyed because apparently keeping a secret is far too difficult for this group. Tasuku explains that he's doing all this for Amano's future because becoming friends with Karen would instantly raise his social status. Amano realizes he's been too narrow-minded and actually gets excited about the idea. Meanwhile, everyone involved starts analyzing what Amano's invitation could mean. Aguri becomes so stressed that she's practically losing her mind, while Chiaki wonders why Amano is approaching Karen when she believes he's already involved with Aguri. After connecting the rumors, she concludes that Aguri must be playing Amano, making him the biggest victim in this entire mess. Tasuku, however, has his own secret reason for watching everything. He wants to find out whether Aguri is actually cheating on him with Amano. His plan is simple. If Aguri looks happy about Amano and Karen getting closer, she's innocent. But if she gets jealous, Tasuku will take it as proof that she's hiding something. Aguri decides to watch Tasuku's reactions for the exact same reason, while Chiaki prepares to uncover the truth behind this ridiculous love triangle. At the same time, Karen is anxiously wondering why Amano wants to meet her after school. She starts fearing that he's finally tired of her and plans to end their friendship, but she decides to stay composed and remember Misumi's advice about being more open. When the bell rings, everyone rushes to the meeting spot. Karen arrives at class 2F and asks Amano why he called her there. As she nervously waits for his answer, Amano starts overthinking too, becoming convinced that she's about to reject him. Tasuku and Aguri are busy watching each other's expressions, and each notices just enough suspicion to convince themselves that the other is cheating. Then Amano finally asks Karen to go out with him. Karen misunderstands the situation and happily says yes, completely shocking everyone. Suddenly, Amano becomes the center of attention as the entire class stares at him like he just won an award nobody expected him to even be nominated for. Tasuku points out that Amano has accidentally skipped straight past friendship and landed in a relationship. Amano then hears Tasuku mention that the guy Aguri likes is now with Karen and completely misunderstands him, assuming Tasuku is talking about himself and basically confirming his own theory that Tasuku is cheating. Later, Amano starts considering whether he should take back his confession because everyone now thinks he and Karen are dating. On his way out, he crosses paths with Karen but gets too embarrassed to speak and quickly escapes. Chiaki soon calls him over and congratulates him, assuming he finally ended things with Aguri. Amano has absolutely no idea what she's talking about. Then he runs into Aguri, whose terrifying stare makes him immediately apologize. She assures him she's only joking, but Amano isn't convinced. Aguri blames him for all the chaos that's happened since he entered her life and asks what he actually wants to happen with Karen. Amano admits he's considering ending things. Aguri tells him that this decision should depend on what he truly wants, not what everyone else expects him to do. Her words make Amano realize that he needs to figure out his own feelings. The next day, Karen waits nervously on the rooftop for Amano, wondering why he asked to meet her. When he finally arrives, Amano asks if she really hates him. Karen becomes embarrassed and assumes he's preparing to take back his confession. She tells him that if that's what he wants, he should just say it, apologizing for getting carried away. Instead, Amano says he's relieved that she doesn't hate him and suddenly asks her out on a date. Karen freezes, wondering if she heard him correctly. Amano calmly explains that since they're apparently dating now, going on a date makes perfect sense. Karen agrees, then immediately runs away before her embarrassment can completely destroy her. When their date finally arrives, they head to an arcade and spend some time gaming together. Afterward, Karen asks what they should do next. Amano checks a map of the arcade floors and immediately covers up the section showing the swimming pool. Of course, Karen notices. She suggests going there, but Amano gets nervous and tries to refuse. Karen teases him by asking if he's simply scared of seeing her in a swimsuit, which leaves him with no choice but to agree. At the pool, Karen appears in her swimsuit and Amano completely loses his ability to function normally. He awkwardly thanks her for giving him the opportunity to see her, while Karen reminds him that a normal person would simply compliment her. They soon notice another couple playing a game where they try to splash each other with water. Karen suggests they do the same, with whoever gets the other person wet first being declared the winner. Karen wins the first round, but after noticing the other couple getting a little too close, they decide it's probably better to move on to another activity. Just then, they notice two guys bothering Chiaki. She quickly runs toward Amano and grabs his arm, using him as an excuse to get rid of them. The two guys immediately back off after realizing she's with someone. Karen watches the whole thing and can't help but feel jealous when she notices how close Chiaki is standing to Amano. Amano notices Chiaki is still holding on to him and reminds her that he's currently on a date with Karen. Chiaki says she already knows, so Amano wonders why she's still clinging to him. Her answer leaves him confused. She says his relationship with Karen is fake anyway. Amano then asks why Chiaki is even at the arcade. She explains that her sister invited her, but they got separated and she can't find her. Karen offers to help search, and when Amano volunteers too, she tells him to wait downstairs for their next game. Amano obediently leaves, making Chiaki wonder if this is what being in a relationship is supposed to look like. Eventually, Karen and Chiaki return, and Amano is surprised to see Chiaki still with her. Chiaki explains that her sister already went home, then claims she wants to help make Karen's date more enjoyable. Amano quickly realizes she's just using that as an excuse to stay with them. Later, the three play a racing game where Amano gets a special bomb item that could help him win. Instead, he uses it immediately just because he thinks it's funny. On the way home, Amano starts worrying that Karen must think he's an idiot, but she laughs and tells him that's exactly what she likes about him. Meanwhile, at another school, a girl named Konoha finishes meeting with the student council and immediately starts fangirling over how cute everyone is. She disguises herself as an old man and heads to a game store to browse some questionable games without attracting attention. While shopping, she spots Misumi and Amano. Their uniforms reveal that they attend the same school as Karen, so Konoha immediately becomes interested. She finds Misumi attractive but considers Amano the kind of protagonist who would get rejected in the first 5 minutes of a dating sim. Misumi asks Amano for a game recommendation, which catches Amano off guard because nobody normally asks him for advice. Misumi shows him a game he's interested in, and Amano gets excited, explaining that it was so good he stayed awake for an entire week just to finish it. Konoha is initially disappointed by their conversation and tries to leave, but then Amano says something unexpected. The game is great, yet he wouldn't recommend it to Misumi. Curious, she keeps listening as Amano offers to explain what actually makes a dating sim good. Misumi agrees, admitting that nobody in the game club really understands the genre. Amano recommends another title, and Konoha is shocked that he's suggesting such an old game, but after hearing his reasoning, she becomes interested enough to buy it herself. Later at home, Konoha lies on the couch thinking about the conversation. When Chiaki notices the game, Konoha awkwardly claims she borrowed it from a friend. Chiaki immediately calls her out by pointing at the price tag still attached to it. Meanwhile, Tasuku decides it's finally time to gather everyone and clear up the endless misunderstandings between them. A few days earlier, Chiaki had shown Amano and Tasuku a romance board game and suggested playing it at her place. Tasuku, being Tasuku, decides to invite Karen and Aguri too, thinking the gathering will be the perfect chance to fix all their relationship drama. Unfortunately, everyone is now so suspicious of each other that they sit around the room like they're attending a hostage negotiation. As they play the romance board game, the scenarios somehow keep matching their real-life relationships almost perfectly. Tasuku watches everything unfold and slowly feels his remaining brain cells leaving the chat. Suddenly, there's a noise at the door, terrifying Tasuku. Chiaki calmly explains that it's just her sister, although Tasuku briefly looks like he's expecting an assassin to walk in. Later, Chiaki steps away for a moment, and Amano admits he's somewhat interested in her sister. Everyone immediately misunderstands him, forcing Amano to awkwardly explain what he actually meant. A moment later, Amano gets a notification and starts playing his usual game on his phone. Karen quietly moves beside him to see what he's doing. Aguri notices them and tells Tasuku she's happy things seem to be working out between Amano and Karen. Tasuku is surprised and asks Aguri about her relationship with Amano, since they've become unusually close lately. Aguri explains that she basically sees him as an annoying little brother and is happy for him now that he has a girlfriend. Tasuku is relieved and takes her hand, reminding himself that she's still his girlfriend. Meanwhile, Amano complains that the game isn't nearly as fun without Mano. Karen asks who Mano is, and Amano immediately starts talking about her with way too much enthusiasm. That's exactly when Chiaki returns. She overhears Amano talking about Sachi, Mano, and the game developer Novi, and her expression instantly changes. Chiaki remembers how she originally started making games. At first, creating simple games and communicating with players was just a fun hobby, but eventually, developing games became exhausting work, and she lost the excitement that made her start in the first place. The only reason she continued releasing games under the name Novi was because someone kept supporting her. There was always one player who genuinely enjoyed her work and encouraged her with sincere warmth, and that player was Sachi. Chiaki finally snaps back to reality and realizes everyone has already left, leaving only her sister behind. She remembers what Amano said about Sachi and Novi but decides that knowing his identity won't magically make her like him. Unfortunately, her embarrassment gets so intense that she collapses anyway, and from that point on, even talking to Amano online becomes painfully awkward. Later, Chiaki goes to tell Konoha that she's heading to the store, only to find her sister doing some suspicious-looking exercises. Konoha quickly claims she's just working out. Before Chiaki leaves, Konoha asks to borrow her computer because her own machine can't handle the videos she wants to watch. Chiaki becomes curious about what kind of videos she's talking about, but Konoha immediately pushes her out of the apartment. At the store, Chiaki suddenly spots Amano watching her and calls him a creepy stalker. Amano explains that he only came because he had forgotten his transit pass at her house. Chiaki threatens to call the police, then realizes her phone is completely dead. Amano can't believe someone can survive the modern world with a dead phone, but Chiaki claims she gets so many messages from guys during summer that she barely checks it anyway. Amano calls that excuse nonsense, which annoys Chiaki. She asks what he even knows about her, and Amano casually says he knows her body. Chiaki nearly explodes before he clarifies that her skin looks exactly like someone who never touches grass. When she asks how he knows that, Amano simply points out that his own skin looks the same. On the way back, Chiaki asks why Amano even cares about summer when he spends most of it gaming anyway. Amano says he feels like this summer might be different, making Chiaki assume Karen is involved. Amano quickly clarifies that he doesn't have any special date plans with her, and the conversation continues until they reach Chiaki's house. Amano only wants to grab his forgotten card wallet and leave, but Chiaki notices it first and hides it so she can keep him around a little longer. While waiting in the living room, Amano notices Chiaki's laundry hanging near the window and immediately gets yelled at for looking. He tries to leave, but Chiaki strangely tells him he can look if he wants, leaving him confused. Chiaki heads to her room to charge her phone, still hiding the wallet. She smiles when a message from Sachi arrives, but Amano suddenly appears to warn her that it's starting to rain and she should bring the laundry inside. Chiaki panics and tries to protect her phone and computer at the same time, causing her to slip and throw the phone away. Amano picks it up, and despite her warning, he notices the Novi game website on her computer and Mano's name on her phone. Suddenly, everything starts making sense. Amano asks what's going on, and Chiaki reluctantly prepares to explain. But before she can reveal the truth, Konoha suddenly appears from under the blankets. Chiaki quickly claims Konoha is responsible, leaving Amano completely stunned. The next day, Amano tells Tasuku about the strange discovery. Tasuku already knows the truth, but Amano finds the whole situation suspicious, especially because Konoha acted like she knew nothing the previous day. Still, Amano admits that discovering Novi and Mano were the same person was an incredible plot twist. Tasuku realizes there's nothing left for him to fix because Chiaki has already chosen her own path. He then accidentally admits that he wouldn't be happy if things worked out between Amano and Karen. Amano is shocked by the statement, while Tasuku immediately runs away after realizing he just exposed himself. On the way home, Amano keeps thinking about what Tasuku meant. He wonders whether Tasuku likes Karen himself or if there's another girl involved. Later, Amano visits a game store to buy an adult game, only to find Konoha standing at the counter buying the exact same title. Konoha immediately regrets not disguising herself, while Amano starts wondering if this is what Mano and Novi are really like outside the internet. Outside the store, Konoha begs Amano not to tell anyone about what he saw. She then asks what he thinks about Chiaki. Amano says there's nothing special, except that he's surprised she's the sister of both Novi and Mano. When Konoha asks what he thinks about Novi's work, Amano enthusiastically praises it, completely unaware that he's basically complimenting Konoha herself. She responds by punching him for reasons Amano can't even understand. They soon run into Chiaki, who immediately wonders why Amano and Konoha are together. Amano almost exposes Konoha's secret, but she steps on his foot before he can say anything. Konoha quickly lies that they simply met to discuss some work, leaving Chiaki wondering when they became so close. Just then, Chiaki receives a call and suddenly starts shouting. Amano and Konoha are confused until she reveals that Tasuku suddenly called her and announced that he'd chosen her before hanging up. Amano wonders if that was basically a confession and later congratulates Chiaki, saying having your crush confess should be a happy thing. Konoha, however, immediately points out that she would reject Tasuku without hesitation since he's already dating Aguri. That leaves Amano with one more problem. If Chiaki and Tasuku actually get together, he has absolutely no idea what he's supposed to tell Aguri. Konoha suggests calling Tasuku back and rejecting him immediately, but Chiaki has no idea how to do it without causing more drama. Amano decides they need advice from someone with professional experience in rejection, so he calls Karen. Karen immediately wonders if he's asking because he plans to use the technique on her. Amano casually says yes, making her panic, and she tells him to figure it out himself before ending the call with an "I love you." Amano sits back down with the other two, completely stunned, then starts praising how adorable his girlfriend is. Konoha gets so annoyed that she gives him a slap worthy of a movie scene. When Amano asks Konoha how she would reject someone, her answer is so useless that he concludes their only option is to bring both Aguri and Karen into the meetup and solve everything together. Amano then approaches Aguri and invites her to join the gamers group. She refuses, saying she doesn't even like gaming. Amano tells her she doesn't have to play, but she needs to at least love games. When she admits she doesn't, he somehow lowers the requirement even further and says loving someone who loves gaming should be enough. Aguri thinks this is ridiculous, but admits she'd enjoy being in the same group as Tasuku. She just doesn't want to cause problems. Amano assures her Karen is joining too, and finally seals the deal by offering her his favorite snack. Aguri immediately accepts. While she eats, Amano can't help feeling sorry for her after remembering that Tasuku confessed to another girl. The next day, everyone gathers after school for the meetup. Amano tries to bring up the actual problem, but his courage disappears at the last second. Instead, he starts passionately talking about a game releasing the following day. Chiaki is disappointed, but Karen gets interested after hearing him mention the series. She asks whether the new game is really worth the hype, and Amano explains that although it wasn't the first game he ever played, it was the first one that truly touched his heart. That night, Chiaki finds an older game from the same series and starts playing it with a strangely happy smile. Konoha walks in and asks whether the meetup solved anything. Chiaki admits nothing happened because Amano chickened out and started rambling about games instead. Konoha says she expected exactly that and tells Chiaki she's also part of the problem. If she keeps refusing to decide what she actually wants from Amano, both her identity as Novi and her relationship with Mano could become unstable. She asks Chiaki directly whether she wants to get closer to Amano or spend the rest of her life fighting with him. Chiaki can't answer, so Konoha tells her to take some time and figure out what she really wants. The following day, Amano leaves after school to prepare for the game's release, while Tasuku meets Chiaki since the others aren't around. Chiaki immediately starts acting awkward and admits she still doesn't have an answer because she doesn't want to hurt anyone. Tasuku completely misunderstands her and assumes she's worried about hurting Karen by taking Amano away from her. Before they can continue, Karen arrives and asks both of them for help. She admits that ever since she started dating Amano, she's become unusually attached to him and constantly wants to be around him. Unfortunately, Amano seems far more interested in gaming and even left earlier because of the new release. She also mentions that Amano often eats with Aguri, which makes Tasuku reassure reassure her that Aguri sees Amano like the little brother she always wanted. Chiaki adds that Amano simply can't separate himself from gaming and sometimes puts it above his own happiness, so Karen will have to accept that part of him. Tasuku finally realizes just how deeply Karen likes Amano, but before he can say anything, Aguri appears and sees Tasuku standing closely with both girls. She immediately gets the wrong idea and runs away. Tasuku chases after her while Karen and Chiaki follow. Aguri tries calling Amano for comfort, and eventually everyone explains what actually happened. They assume Amano won't show up because he's supposed to be waiting for the game release, but he suddenly arrives, completely out of breath. Amano is shocked to see everyone and admits he thought Aguri had broken up with Tasuku and needed someone to comfort her. Once he learns it was all just a misunderstanding, he regrets running over in the first place. Everyone asks why he isn't at the game store, and Amano explains that he put the release plans on hold because this situation was more important. He and Aguri then start arguing like an old married couple, leaving Tasuku standing there wondering how he somehow became the third wheel in his own relationship. That night, Karen calls Amano and tells him about a double date with Tasuku and Aguri. Amano is confused by the sudden idea but agrees despite how awkward it sounds. When the date arrives, Amano and Karen are weirdly excited, while Tasuku and Aguri wonder why they're acting like they've just won the lottery. Eventually, Amano and Aguri end up together for a while as Karen and Tasuku move ahead, and both of them start suspecting the other pair is only trying to hide their cheating. Tasuku and Karen secretly signal each other to make their moves, but their plan is interrupted by Chiaki and Konoha. Apparently, Konoha had invited Chiaki out earlier, but Chiaki initially refused because she had weekend plans. Konoha teased her by calling it a date with Amano, which immediately embarrassed her. Chiaki admitted she wasn't ready for a date with him, especially since he's already with Karen, but Konoha told her to stop hiding her feelings. Chiaki still couldn't give her a straight answer, so Konoha simply told her to invite Amano herself if she wanted to come. Chiaki immediately agreed. Konoha had actually learned about the original date after spying on Tasuku and Karen, and she wasn't about to let her sister get left out. Since everyone is already together, Amano suggests they all hang out. They enjoy a roller coaster before heading into a horror attraction. Amano gets excited because apparently scary monsters provide the kind of stimulation girls can't give him. Inside, Aguri gets scared first and grabs Tasuku. Karen then triggers a trap and panics, immediately catching Amano's attention. Konoha notices and gets jealous on her sister's behalf. Tasuku and Aguri continue ahead while Karen tries to talk to Amano, but when she turns around, she discovers that Amano and Chiaki have somehow disappeared through an emergency exit. Konoha has basically sent them to another dimension. On the other side, Amano asks what the hell she's doing, but Chiaki is acting strangely quiet. When he asks if she's okay, she suddenly collapses against him. After waking up, Amano worries that she looks pale, but Chiaki insists she's fine. Konoha leaves to get drinks, giving the two some privacy. Just as Chiaki is about to say something important, Karen calls Amano. He starts to leave, but Chiaki quietly asks him not to abandon her there. Amano decides to stay and says he'll call Karen back later. He then asks why Chiaki even came. Embarrassed, she admits Konoha basically forced her into coming as part of a date. Amano asks who she's supposed to be dating, making her even more uncomfortable as she tells him it's none of his business. After an awkward silence, Chiaki asks what Amano thinks about Novi and Mano. Amano says they're incredibly important to him, even though he still hasn't completely processed their true identities. Chiaki then asks whether they're more important to him than Karen. Amano is confused by the question but admits that Karen is important to him too. He's grateful that he gets to be in a relationship with her, and he also values Tasuku, Aguri, and Chiaki because he never imagined a lonely gamer like himself would eventually make so many friends. He says everything started when Karen first approached him, but Amano also admits that it still hurts because he doesn't know exactly how Karen feels about him. Chiaki can't help feeling jealous after hearing that. Konoha eventually returns and insults Amano for the awkward situation, after which he suggests they return to the others. Chiaki wants to go home instead and tells Amano to enjoy the rest of his date with Karen. Amano doesn't believe her excuse and simply grabs her hand, dragging her back with him. They reunite with everyone and watch the parade together. Tasuku finally manages to hold Aguri's hand, while Amano holds Karen's. Chiaki stays with Konoha and actually manages to enjoy herself. A few days later, the gamers head to a resort together. Once they arrive, Karen mentions hearing that Amano recently bought a terrible game. Amano admits it was a horrible purchase. He initially thought he'd found something amazing, only to discover it was basically a cheap Fortnite knockoff. Now he can't return it and has wasted a bunch of money. Aguri immediately jumps in, saying games are overpriced anyway. The gamers take this personally. Tsuku tries to defend gaming by explaining that games can actually be cheaper than clothes, but Aguri argues that clothes are at least necessary while games serve no practical purpose. The others start defending their hobby, but Aguri counters every argument they make. She even attacks DLC, questioning why gamers willingly spend real money dressing up fictional characters when they could buy actual clothes. Amano tries everything to defend gaming, throwing out analogy after analogy, but Aguri refuses to budge. Even Chiaki and Karen try convincing her during a sauna discussion, but her opinion remains unchanged. That night, Aguri repeats that games are simply too expensive. Amano admits that hearing her say that hurts anyone who plays games seriously. He explains that gaming is a form of recreation where people are naturally willing to waste money because the experience itself has value. He then remembers something from his childhood. His parents once accidentally bought him a cheap knockoff game that somehow cost more than the original. They had already made the mistake, and Amano didn't have the heart to tell them, so he started playing it anyway. Surprisingly, he ended up loving it. He played that terrible game for 3 years while constantly complaining about how bad it was. Aguri argues that the same thing could happen with anything, but Amano explains that games are different because they're a flexible medium. You can invest as much emotion, time, and imagination into them as you want, which can turn even a terrible purchase into a memorable experience. He admits gamers will sometimes make stupid purchases, but the important thing is finding your own way to enjoy what you've bought. Tsuku adds that even making fun of terrible games and joining the crowd roasting them can be part of the fun. The others share their own experiences, and Aguri finally begins to understand why gaming matters so much to them. Amano gets excited and suggests they all play the awful game he bought together. Everyone immediately ignores him and goes to bed. Amano is left wondering why he just delivered an entire motivational speech if nobody was going to play his game anyway. And that's where this chaotic gaming romance comes to an end. If you enjoyed the recap, hit the like button and drop a comment below. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe for more anime recaps and chaotic adventures.